Frederick Douglass was born in February of 1818. He actually didn't know his real birthday, so he celebrated it later in life on February 14th. But at a young age, Frederick Douglass was separated from his mother and actually was raised by his grandmother. But when Frederick was about 6 years old, he was also separated from his grandmother, and he went to live with Thomas Auld at the Y Plantation. And so while he was there, Thomas Auld actually gave him to his brother Hugh, and him and his wife Sophia looked after Douglass. Well, while Douglass was in their care, Sophia taught Douglass the alphabet, and that's how he was able to teach himself to read and write. Not long after that, he was hired under William Freeland to teach other slaves to read and write using the Bible. But when Douglass was about 16 years old, he was moved from the Y Plantation into the hands of Edward Covey. And he had a reputation for doing horrible things to his slaves, and it just wasn't very good. And Douglass tried to escape twice before he was actually successful in 1838. And so he took a train from Maryland to New York, where he met up with Anna Murray. Well, Anna Murray was a free black woman that Frederick Douglass met while he was with the Aulds, and they got married that next September. And then they moved to New Bedford, Massachusetts, where they adopted the name Douglass from a poem from The Lady on the Lake. And Anna and Frederick, they had 5 children together. They had Rosetta, Lewis Henry, Frederick Jr., Charles Redmond, and Annie. And when they moved to New Bedford, Douglass started attending all of these anti-slavery abolitionist meetings, which is where he was first introduced to the writings of William Lloyd Garrison, which actually inspired Frederick to write. And so he started the North Star in 1847, but it was later changed to the Frederick Douglass paper in 1851, and he published that all the way to 1860. He published his first biography, The Narrative in the Life of Frederick Douglass, in 1845. And he went on tour for that, and he spoke overseas about his autobiography and how slavery should be abolished. And while he was overseas, his supporters raised up enough money to actually buy Frederick's freedom. So when he came back in 1847, he came back as a free man. And so when he came back into the United States, people kept asking him, like, hey, can you tell us your story, We want to hear all about it. You have this, it's so amazing what you're doing. So he wrote a couple books after that. He wrote My Bondage and My Freedom in 1855 and The Life and Times of Frederick Douglass in 1881. And he actually spoke at a lot of meetings. His first speech was at the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society's convention in Nantucket. And there was a lot of controversy when it came to that because Frederick Douglass was speaking on a very sensitive subject, and he was very passionate about it, and crowds actually had some issues with him sometimes. But later on, Anna died, his wife, and he became a women's rights supporter, and he actually remarried to a woman named Helen Pitts, who was a major feminist. And then also, Douglass was appointed for several political positions after the war, and he became the first African American to be nominated for Vice President of the United States. But he actually did serve as the president of the Freedom Savings Bank in the Dominican Republic. He also served as the minister resident and consul general at the Republic of Haiti. And he held that post from 1889 to 1891. And he actually went back and reconciled with Thomas Auld, and I think that was just a really good time time for Frederick because he was able to let go of all that stuff. And people gave him a lot of hate for it, but personally, I think it was the right thing to do. But on February 20th, 1895, Frederick Douglass died of a major heart attack, and he was buried at Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester, New York. And that is the life of Frederick Douglass.